Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Rooted in Design. I'm excited to have my first long form video with you all. And I have my friend Steve Schlansky, the COO and CRO of Brook. And thank you for being here. And I'm excited to talk about everything related to smart technology for homes and security. But before we do that, let's get a little intro from you about what you do and your background.
Sure. First of all, good morning, and thank you for having me. And it's nice to be the first long form. And if people who know me would say, yeah, that's a good idea for me, because I never stop talking. But I grew up in Bayside. I went to Binghamton University. I went to Brook Law School. Not a lawyer, and which makes me happy. I started my career in manufacturing in a manufacturing company in New Jersey. Kind of switched a while ago to the security industry and reached the C level at a couple of companies in that. Lots of experience. I think it's a great industry because at its core, it's life safety. And I think that's really important. If you're going to do something and you're going to love something, it's an extra added bonus if you're helping people and helping save their lives and their property. I came to Brook Hill a little over a year ago. I've been doing a lot of networking, which is how we met, and it's I love doing that. I love getting out, meeting people, spreading the word, telling people who I am and what Brook Hill is and what we do. And what we do is fairly simple. I mean, our emphasis is on electronic security, which is burglar alarms, CCTV, access control for business and home, and smart automation, and that for home and business, and that's sound systems, lighting systems, controlling, it's pretty much anything that has an electronic pulse. You can control and try to kind of pull it all together to make it simple and easier to use, and to save time and money in the process.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, especially the security part. Same with architecture. Like to get my license, I had to do an oath of life, welfare, safety, and health of the people inhabiting it. And part of it is consulting with you and working with you, creating that safety through the security system. And the smart technologies. We're in the world of AI. We'll touch base a little bit on that later, but smart technology makes life easier, and it makes things I think it saves things. So like going into the first question, how exactly does home automation help reduce energy bills? And which smart devices offer the biggest return on investment in terms of like how can smart homes equal smart savings?
I would say, I think it's hard to pin it on one thing, because a truly smart home, not one that just has smart devices, but a truly smart home or smart business is something that's incorporating everything together and giving you the ability to control it with one app, so that you can just bring out one device and control all the things you need to do. In terms of cost savings, I don't know if you get your bills from your utility company, but I get them all the time, and they compare my home and its efficiencies to other homes in my areas. And, we're usually just kind of right in the middle, but it's the things that are going to, put money back in your pocket. And so how are, keeping the lights on a better schedule, keeping your heating system on a better schedule. And of course, that's the green effect as well. You're not burning gas or oil. Just really kind of controlling everything. The less electricity that you're using, the less fuel that you're using, it's cost savings, and it's better for a greener world.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And I'm working on a project where we're going to be doing a geothermal system. And I've been now talking to the client because their next step, not the future phase, I always tell them, like, if you want to automate the rest of the house, you can have on one app to make sure that system's constantly working. Not until the house is cold. On a cold winter day, it's that integration of every system. So it's a collaboration.
Yeah, and you can, because security systems, they used to just kind of be very reactive. You had your panel on the wall, and it's really just input and output. So you have your sensors in the field, and they pick up on something, and they send the outputs of the panel, and the panel sent something to the central station, and someone in the central station would interpret that and say, okay, there's a motion detector that went off in the middle of the house and nothing else. That's probably nothing.
Yeah.
But if you see a trail that front door, motion detector, et cetera, et cetera. So it's gotten better at gathering the data more quickly, more efficiently, sensing patterns, interacting with the CCTV systems better, facial recognition. And I think one of the cooler things is, when you can set up, a geothermal, parameter so that when you're coming home, it knows that you're within a mile of being home. So you can set that up so that you want the light to go on. You want your music playing when you're in the door. Or you could just set it up on schedules in general that so that you're preventing crime because the lights are on and it looks like the house is occupied. And you're also you're looking at the entire system as a way of making your life a little better, a little more
For
efficient,
sure.
and fun and cool, which is why we have it in our slogan, safe, smart, and cool, because people just kept on looking at the stuff that we were doing and hearing about it and saying, "Wow, that's cool, that's really cool." So we just said, "Well, yeah, it is." So that's why we incorporated it. Yep.
I love that. And then I think that's a great segue of the next question. So we want to work smarter, not harder. So in what ways can smart home technology simplify those daily routines for busy homeowners, families with young children, or even people with elderly seniors who are they have their parents living at their home and want to make sure they're okay? So talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a number of things. First off, if you think about the way a family lives, so the days of everyone sitting in the den and watching the same television program are beyond gone. But so you have the children in one room, and you might have the mom and dad in different rooms doing different things. So why not have an audio system that is dealing with different things going on in the house, and that can be easily controlled. And if you have the arguments of how loud something is, well, you can kind of control that without actually being in the room, which is great. And I think there was a time for the older generation where they were not used to dealing with smartphones. Maybe a flip phone or maybe a landline. So, but now, grandma and grandpa are on their smartphones, and they're having FaceTime conversations with their kids and their grandchildren. So they're kind of used to dealing with with a smartphone. So putting a simple app on grandma's phone so that her day is starting. Either you can set it up as a schedule and say, okay, we want this to happen, and turn on the coffee maker, turn on the lights, turn on the TV, turn on the music on a certain schedule, or she can control that from bed before she even gets there. Turn on the lights and do things, or just have things motion controlled so that as she's walking around, things turn on as she's going through the house. So it's and of course you're talking about the efficiencies of those systems, because they're only on when they're needed. Because most of us, I think the statistic is something between 60 and 75% of the electricity that you use in your home is stuff that you have constantly on that doesn't have to be on.
Yeah.
So if you can set up a system where you're actually turning things off with no detrimental effects, then you probably should. You're going to be, it's the cost savings of that. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think most people don't realize if you keep something plugged in, though it's not being used, it's still pulling some current. Mm-hmm. So if you do a smart home, you could shut off those outlets and say those outlets don't have to be on until X amount of time. Devices, we do, or it's vice versa. Like when I've worked on medical facilities, we make sure certain outlets are dedicated and they're always on and connected to, I'm blanking on the name, generator, just to make sure, God forbid, the lights go out, the refrigerators with the medications are still working on a generator. So it can be vice versa.
24/7 outlet.
Yeah, and I think it's also smart to talk about those people who have children. I'm not there yet, but I definitely have friends who have a few kids, and it saves time for them to say, okay, their room lights are going to turn on at 6 a.m. because they need to start getting up and go through their routines. It really simplifies their life that way too. Let's talk about how the value boost you get when you work with smart technology. So, how do smart technology upgrades impact the home resale value, and which upgrades do you think are the most attractive for new potential buyers?
I think it's that cool factor again. And I think there was a time in real estate when you were selling, okay, let's throw a coat of paint on and that's going to be, give us a return on investment. Sure, that's still part of it. And you have your curb value of what a house looks like. But the things that we do, and I'm not going to sit here and advocate you're putting in a $100,000 automation system when you're selling a home, but there are those things when someone's walking into a house and they're looking at it, and okay, look at this. You pull out your phone and you press the button, and the shades go up and down. Or you're controlling all the light systems, or click the audio system goes on. So those kinds of things are just, they do add to the cool factor and will make someone feel good about, hey, you know what, I'd like this to be my home because look at all this stuff. And I don't even have to, really add that much to it because it's great. But I think in particular, I think electronic shades and the ability to keep the sun out or in when you want it, and of course the damage that sun does, over time, what it does to the furniture, what it does to the floors, what it does to your air conditioning bills, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that becomes important. I think in general in the world of constant media attention and how we watch television and watch movies. The ability to control those things easily through an app is a big thing, and just the lights in general. I think that's an important thing. Controlling the lights easily, just makes it great. And you're talking about real cost savings over the course of a year if you're cutting down on the effects of the environment and light and sun and all that, so that you're just doing the best that you can to decrease your costs.
Yeah.
Because if you turn on your air conditioning in May and leave it on till October, which many people do because they just want the house to be cool, but you still have the sun beating in through the windows or a sunroof or et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you can do certain things so that you can turn down the air conditioning a little bit, save a lot of money. So
and it's all interconnected in the design aspect. So like I, as an architect who is big on like wellness, I love windows, but I do mention how it's important for our circadian rhythm. So the interconnection to lighting and shades helps you also regulate yourself in a natural way. And also, at the same time, making sure you're installing windows that have those multi-layers that are energy efficient. So it can't be like you have a single pane old 1940 windows and expect it to be... that's where you're like the cheapest... the cheapest method would be automated shades to control. But if you're doing a bigger renovations, like how do you create those energy efficient windows, those automated shades, having it all integrated so... You are overall saving on that energy.
Sure. And another thing, we've been talking a bit about homes, but if you think about an office, there are so many office spaces that, because of styles and preferences, had a very open architecture for a very long time. So, isn't that cool to have a conference room right in the middle of an open floor with glass there so that it looks great? Well, that's terrific, and it does look great. However, what if you're putting stuff on the whiteboard that you don't want other people to see?
Yeah.
What if you're discussing things because you're kind of in the middle of it and glass isn't necessarily the best way to to prevent sound from getting out? So you're looking at those things and kind of a reaction to the open architecture. You can do things through smart technology and install things that kind of give you the power to control your information.
Like electrified glass that then becomes opaque.
Graying it out, sure. Or, of course, electronic shades.
Electronic shades too. So many different
And
aspects.
they kind of wear better too, because electronic shades, it's just the electricity going up and down. But when you have regular shades and it's people pulling it down, and people are not necessarily going to be really careful about pulling down the shade and putting it back up, what have you. So so it's home and business.
And it's and then he's going to nuances what type of shade you need. Like, do you need blackout shades? Do you need like just 50% opacity. It's
Right, and that goes to, because every application is similar but different.
Yeah,
and depending on the
exactly.
taste. When you're designing things and you go into someone's home, what you put in one home versus another home, well, that's really, you can suggest things, but how it's going to end up is going to be very different depending on
Yeah.
the style that they have and that they want. So,
Yeah.
but that's also, what's cool about it. It's just you're adding these technologies to people's homes and businesses, but you're giving them the flexibility to have it look and feel like they want it to look and
Yeah,
feel.
exactly. And I always tell people, you might like something from Pinterest, from HGTV, but let's talk about the why, because sometimes what you need to resolve in your space may not be what you're seeing. It just looks cool, but we can do a similar cool element
Yep.
that actually resolves your issues, which
We
is
just had
amazing.
someone who had come to us, and the way their living room was, and it's actually similar for me, but the only wall that was really good for a TV was the brick wall above the fireplace. But they didn't really want to take away from the look of the fireplace and the brick wall, but they still wanted a TV there. Okay, roll up TV.
Yeah.
So we do lots of smart TVs and different types of TVs, and we do home theaters and business
Yeah.
home theaters. It depends on what people are looking
Yeah,
for. So
it's
as you
really
know,
nice.
it's important to listen.
Yeah, it's important to listen. Yeah, I did a project of a second story dormer, and we did a drop down TV, and it was a last minute thought because something happened within the family. They had to switch the layout halfway through construction, so we made it work with the technology. It would have been nicer if we could have hidden it above, but it just goes up and you see it from above. But that's actually cool.
You should have called us.
Yeah. Well, this was like a while back. Yeah, before I met you. Yeah, no, it's so funny.
But it's interesting also what it does to value, because if you think about homeowners associations, so and very quick, I met someone who had to. She had bought, and it was in the high sixes in an over 55 community. Illness in the family, she had to move in with her parents, so she had to sell that, and her parents were in a different one. And they don't put these developments in bad areas. They just don't.
Yeah.
So there's a similarity to where they are, but the value of the home was so much less where her parents were, and it was really because it was an older development. But the age didn't really make that much difference, because it was fine. But did the gym have cool lights? Did the gym have smart TVs?
Yeah.
Was there a TV room that in a common area? Did the common area have all the audio systems? Because where you're playing mahjong, you want the same music playing as where you're playing cards, or where you're doing your or you're having a book club. All these different things. Having these systems put in give you that flexibility and add value to everyone that's there, because when you're showing your house, if you're going to be selling it, a modern, cool, common area versus an older one that that doesn't have those things.
Yeah.
Value.
Yeah, and it's the market right now. It is the millennial group who are buying homes, first homes, or they're investing. We grew up a millennial. We grew up in the learning the technology, but that's our most of our adulthood has been in technology. So.
Sure.
I think that's a lot of things what I get, people my age, when they look for a home for themselves. They're like, oh, I want to add X, Y, Z.
Yes.
Yeah.
It also depends on which home you're talking about. Because is it a starter home? And that's one socioeconomic situation.
Yeah.
And then is it the home that you're flipping to because your family is growing? And then is it the home that you're retiring into?
Exactly.
So different stages of life, you have different needs and different abilities and different financial situations.
Yeah.
So you have to, as an architect, as a
Yeah.
provider of security and automation, you have to look at those things and kind
for
of
sure.
use that as your guide as to how you're going to approach it.
Is it your forever home? Are we aging in place? I always ask that. Or is this meant to be like the starter home? So maybe we do minimal. Sometimes I say, how about we do just the cabling for potential future smart technology? Because then afterwards you can say it's already cabled for that. So whoever moves in can allocate what they need.
The pre-cabling is big in the security industry because you just don't want to have to do it twice. And the walls, security industry, it's notorious for people to kind of just say, oh, yeah, we forgot. Can you put in a 20 camera system in a week? Sure, we forgot about security. Okay, great. But you run into those kinds of things,
Yeah.
and you deal with it as you have to deal with it. But it always comes down to making sure you fully understand what the customer needs and wants. And it's funny because when I was teaching sales reps in the industry, one of the first things I would teach people to do is, first, if it's a standalone home, can we walk around the property? Which has nothing to do with electronic security, but just kind of like saying, okay, and you're going to get a why, and it's like, okay, well, I just want to see some things. Well, those are really nice bushes, very nice the way you have them, but they're a concealer. So somebody can do something that they shouldn't do. And, your second floor there, that's pretty accessible and hidden for somebody who's going to put a ladder to get to the second floor. Yeah. So these are the things that you can look at that have nothing to do with really what you're there to sell.
Yeah.
But it's an overall, you're an overall provider of peace of mind and safety, so it becomes important.
Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way in terms I address architects. They're like, oh, I just need this. And then it ends up being understanding much more than what they're trying to do. We touched base a little bit about technology improving and all that. So AI, like we mentioned, and automation is becoming big. So how is artificial intelligence and automation transforming home security? And what do you see coming in the next few years?
I think AI, in terms of truly what it is, has been around for a while.
Yeah.
It's now a very hot and realistic buzzword, but it's really, in the security industry, it's a couple of things. One is how good are the devices in gathering the data that's necessary. So they're, obviously, as things become more sophisticated, they're going to get better at that. And, facial recognition and just recognizing the patterns and everything that's going on in the home or business. But it's really about gathering this tremendous amount of data and being able to deal with that data better than it has in the past, and then interpreting that data to pick up on those patterns and truly be better at interpreting what has happened, and is it real, is it false? Because as resources are strained everywhere, and police departments already are taking a much stronger interested in preventing false alarms and not responding to false alarms and having you pay for false alarms if you're doing it too much. So, the industry is going to be continuing to move towards better devices, better interpretation of the data, and better understanding of what is a false alarm, what's real, and then trying to create faster reactions to those things. And that's just a path where it's not exactly this. But it's going up, and I think that's great. So it's just better cameras, better detection devices, better panels to interpret the data that's coming in, and working in conjunction with the central stations to make sure that they're getting the fastest and the best information, and getting the police involved as quickly as possible, and helping as an industry, making sure that people don't have the attitude of they didn't show up.
Yeah.
And so we want the whole package to be better all around.
In connection with that, when you mentioned collection of data, police department having access, a lot of people have issues or worries about privacy. So with so many devices collecting different types of data, like Alexa hearing you all the time, the way our ads show up on our social media based on what we say. What should homeowners know about privacy, and how can they protect their information when they go in and say, let's install a security system?
Well, I think if it's something that really does concern you, then you need to get professionals in to make sure that kind of information is not being picked up in the first place. You can always control. It's about control. So you want to control what your devices are picking up. You want to also make sure that your system is working to the best of its ability. A lot of times, the core of everything now is your internet in your home.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you hear about, you see lots of things where, the Ring cameras, et cetera, are picking up things that happen on the street. But you also have a lot of downtime on these cameras because your router and your modem can be way in the back end of the house, which is fine because that's where your room, your office is. So that can create some sort of intermittence. Intermittency for your cameras. So you just want to make sure the core of your system is operating properly, and then dealing. If you're a tech savvy person, then you can do it on yourself. Honestly, I'm not a tech savvy person. That's not my level of interest. But you can. There are tons of people out there that can work in your home or in your business so that you're the best at controlling what's going on. And therefore, if it's something that you're worried about, are they listening to me, or what's out there, et cetera, you can control, and you can put buffers, and you can put preventative devices and controls so that that's not getting out there.
Yeah. And you actually touch base on my next question, was going to be on Wi-Fi and the importance of having a good network in your home. Because people think one modem, one connection is enough for the whole house, but there are buffers. So when you go in, when Brook Hill goes in and assesses for a security system or even automation systems, it's now you can have Wi-Fi control, light fixtures, etc. Do you have within the company, or do you have a partner that come to talk about those different Wi-Fi access points?
We can handle that.
Okay.
And it's funny, back in the day, you would walk around somebody's house with your cell phone just checking for signals.
Yeah.
And so if there wasn't a signal in the basement, depending on how the house was constructed, et cetera, you would have issues with that. But as you said, there are boosters that you can put to make sure the signal is being carried throughout the house. You do have some smart devices that actually use 110 in the house to make sure that it's being covered. So there's a lot of ways of doing it. But we're a soup to nuts company. We don't want to start dealing with your computer itself. I mean that's not what we're getting into. But in terms of setting up the Wi-Fi and making sure it's working and being used properly with our system, that's something that we do.
That's amazing.
All the time,
yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Are you a homeowner who is looking to expand your home so you have enough space for everything you need in your home? Or do you want to renovate because the interior just doesn't work for your needs anymore? Or are you someone who's looking for a property, but nothing that you've been looking at really fits what you need? Well, my name is Katherine Serrano Sosa. I'm the founder of Rooted Architecture Studio, and I can help you bring those renovations and adjustments to life. At Rooted Architecture Studio, we focus on creating meaningful, inclusive, client-centric designs for homeowners and investors. We walk you through the whole process of designing construction and making sure that you understand what's going on, but take away all the layers so you can sit back and just focus on the deliverables of what we're designing. We make sure that your non-negotiables are integrated and your wants and needs are integrated to the best of our abilities. So if you are looking to do anything that I just discussed, or just have ideas that you might want to talk about what the possibilities may be, give us a call and reach out through social media as well, and we'll be happy to help you. And if you're looking for a new property, make sure to connect with Dream Select Realty. They're the right people to help you find the right property for you and make sure that your needs are integrated. Or if we're renovating, we can all collaborate together to bring that vision to life.
Now let's touch base are the differences of DIYs versus professional installs. I had this week, I did do a newsletter on what people can do DIY. There are some accessible elements, like you can buy your own dimmable switches or Ring cameras. People can buy those, install them, or have an electrician install. But there's other types of DIYs too. So what are the pros and cons of DIY installations compared to hiring a professional, especially when it comes to security systems? So we can talk a little bit about the smart automations, but also security overall.
I have an anecdote that I usually use to describe what can happen. So if you're a tech savvy person and that's what you want to do, great. But then there's also the time factor, because with electronics, something always goes wrong, and at some point or another, do you have the time and inclination to fix it? So, that's if you're a tech savvy person. But a lot of times, people look at buying a system, a do-it-yourself system, and it's like, okay, I'll save some money if I do that. So they bring it home, and they're not necessarily tech savvy, so it goes on the dining room table to such time that they're going to be installing it. And it sits on the dining room table. And then all of a sudden something else comes along and it goes from the dining room table to the dining room floor. And it sits on the dining room floor. And then all of a sudden something else comes along, it's like they're tired of looking at it, and it goes in the closet, and that's where it lives. Because a lot of do-it-yourself systems are just never installed. Yeah. If you're looking at it as something that you can handle and you truly can handle it, that's fine. Yeah. But there's a lot of times that you can get called out to help on do-it-yourself systems because people don't really have the inclination or the ability once something goes wrong. In CCTV systems that used to be sold used to have really short cables, which made it kind of useless. But it's so if you can do it, it's a good way to save money. If you can't do it, it's a mistake, and because it's always going to be a problem for you. So will it cost more to have a professional organization do it, whether it's Brook Hill or any other ones? It absolutely will. But you have your reputation for your company is how you deal with your customers, not necessarily on the install, which is of course important, but then on the service all the way around. So you want to be taking care of it. So when you're dealing with do-it-yourself versus a professional install, cost savings up front, do-it-yourself, absolutely. But do you really want to do it yourself? And then what if something goes wrong when you're hiring a professional organization? That's what we do. It's experts, professionals doing the things that are needed to be done. And then when things inevitably go wrong, as they will, you're there to help and fix what's wrong.
I always tell
like anything else, you're weighing one against the other.
Yeah, I always tell people you're either investing your time or you're investing your money, so you can use your time in something better.
Yes.
Same as running a company. So whether it's security systems or architectural design, I always say, like, if you invest ahead of time, you will be investing now, but you'll be saving in the long run. And like you said, like if you're trying to save money and you're spending your own time, you might not do it properly, and then you're spending twice as much later trying to fix it. Because it's not simple.
Replacing the entire thing.
So sometimes it's just worth being patient and investing upfront and letting it flow easily.
Yeah, I think when it happened in the industry, there were a lot of those in the industry that were afraid of it. What's it going to do? But in the end, not much really. It just and it's a funny thing about security in this industry. I think it's something between 25 and 30% penetration. How many people in this country actually have security systems? And you would think about that and say, wow, that's really low. But and the whys, well, we live in an apartment, live in a gated community, we have a dog, we're always home, all these different things. My response to that, and I think it's a very important response, is life safety, because this has happened to us, and that is CO detectors. Monitored CO detectors are important to have. Monitored smoke detectors are important to have. Water detection devices, so if the water starts flowing, either you know about it or you can have it work in conjunction with a plumber, where you have the valve shut down so the water stops flowing. So these are important reasons to have security systems. And is the do-it-yourself, I'm tying it back to the do-it-yourself, is the do-it-yourself going to be doing all of that stuff? Maybe.
Definitely. With the carbon monoxide and smoke detectors, it is now code. You have to have hardwired smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. Now they have the combo units.
Right.
And so if you're touching a property more than 40% or 50%, you must do hardwire. And if you're adding new rooms, extensions, that must at least be hardwire. Everything else can be the battery ones. So that's important. So if you already know that that's required, you might as well add the at least the bare minimum security system.
Yeah, if you don't want to use the alarm, fine, don't use the alarm. But please make sure that yeah, one of the most important messages, and it goes back to this industry and why I love it. It's so important to have your family that you love and you're trying to protect, have the CO detectors, have the smoke detectors, and in terms of property damage, there's not much more that's going to screw up your house than tremendous water damage. Joe from ABA, where he had, he had a second floor terrible leak, and months out of the house and many $1,000s of damages, and that's just something that you want to avoid.
Yeah.
And if at all possible, and that's kind of the other side to security. It's not just a burglar alarm.
Yeah.
It's not just a CCTV system or an easy lock to put in a code so you don't have to deal with keys anymore, but it's life safety.
Yeah, and it's not just for like your home because it's family. Like even if for sometimes investors or people who rent properties, you want that safety net. If you invest in that water detection, all these other elements, you know right away. So then you're not spending those extra $1,000 in fixing your rent. And what if you have to move out the people who are renting? You're losing months of rent, and you're spending twice as much. Yeah. With the leak detection, it can quickly be taken up. And then in terms of security, that's maybe where if you're renting, like I rent where I live, we have some cameras that they're like, DIY, just putting them in and connects to like our phone. But when I buy my own house, that's where it's worth investing bigger. But my landlord won't invest in that security system right now. Sure. So I think that's where like the DIY might actually make sense. Mm-hmm. But it's worth as the landlord or in your own whole properties to install all of that.
Yep.
Definitely.
And it's a funny thing with CCTV systems is that, somebody says, well, I only have 4 cameras or 8 cameras. Okay, I'll get an 8-camera NVR. And it's like, you really should, it's not that much, get a 16-camera one. Why? Because you're going to want more cameras as you live with this. Yeah. And when it happens, certainly happens in businesses, and it happens in homes as well. You just like, it's kind of like a tease. Mm-hmm. You just like, okay, well, I kind of like it. It's kind of cool to have that view, and then there's that cool factor again. Yeah. And then you just want to add another camera, get a different view, really cover things. So
and also like in perspective, like people tend to have a very tunnel vision of what they want, and that's why they bring us in. For you, it would be like they think, like you said, they might need 8 cameras, but then when you walk the space and you show them like, well, these are your blind spots. Mm-hmm. You're not seeing it. And then they're like, oh, we understand now. Mm-hmm. So even the DIY, you will be missing maybe key components that are important.
Yeah, and in a business where you have, if you have certain rooms in the office that you have, you want certain people that on a schedule that, Katherine can go in room 1, 2, and 3, but she can't go in room 4 and 5. Mm-hmm. Okay. But you also kind of want to say, well, Katherine keeps on trying to go in room 4 and 5. So you want a CCTV there to just kind of be checking out the people who are trying to get in rooms. They know they're not supposed to get in.
Yeah.
That's good knowledge to have. So, so it's that combination of the CCTV system with the access control system and the burglar alarm system so that they're all interacting so you can get as much knowledge of what's going on in your facility or your home so you can deal with anything that could potentially cause you problems later on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been very insightful, and I wish we had more time to keep talking, but I think it would be great for you to just give us like maybe 3 last-minute tips of things to avoid or to look out for in terms of security automation, and also how can people reach out to you if they need your services, besides asking me to connect with you too.
I think number 1, we touched on it. It's important. Make sure your backbone is as robust as possible. Okay. And 1A to that, as secure as possible, because we talked about that. That's important. And also in terms of the security system, to really understand what your needs are. You don't want to be doing something that if you don't need it, you don't need it. But if you have a potential for it, it's kind of like a worst case scenario. You do need to be prepared for that. And in terms of the automation side of things, the cool side of things, kind of have a vision of what you want. Whoever you are, and you've got your home, and it's a new home, or you're redoing your home, you're upgrading. Kind of, have a vision of like what you'd like in each room, and have realistic discussions, because if you can kind of think about it, it can be created, and that's a kind of a cool thing, because you can go about your design, and we can make that a reality.
Yeah, amazing.
In terms of us, we're brookhill.newyork.com. S. Schlansky at brookhill-newyork.com.
Yeah.
So just please feel free to reach out for any security or any automation need, or combination thereof, and we'd be glad to come by, do a site survey, and figure out what it is that you need, and talk to you about what might be best for your individual application.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you.